Welcome back to Turning the Mirror podcast. My name is Kwach. So, the country woke up to some interesting news that the government of the day, that is Kenya Kwanza government, is planning to sell a portion of its 35% stake at Safaricom. That means, let me make it clear this way. If you look at how the shareholding at Safaricom is, the government owns about 35, actually the government owns 35% of the shares. Vodacom also owns 35% of the shares. Then Vodafone owns 5% of the shares. So the remaining 25% is a free float. In other words, the remaining 25% is shared among individuals, like it's a free float. Now, the government is planning to sell a portion of its 35%. Now, why Safaricom? The CS for Treasury, John Mbadi, simply stated that of all the other government entities, only Safaricom is suitable for this kind of transaction, because most of the other entities are either running into loss or have been running into loss for the longest time or for the past several years since they've been into the market, or they are being mismanaged, or there is no clear structure. They're not structured to offering such a transaction, or rather they are not listed as a limited liability, something that then would be of interest to investors. So a sale of a portion of 35%, Mbadi estimates these shares, the 35% shares, to about 280.5 billion Kenya shillings. That is what now the government owns at the Safaricom company. But they want to raise between now and the period, the financial year will be ending in June 2026. They want to raise about 149 billion Kenya shillings. So they are planning to sell these shares to raise amount of 149 billion shillings before June next year. That is before the end of the financial year, this year to June 2026. What does this mean for the country or for its citizens? Because 35% that is owned by the government, that is, in simple terms or in layman's language, that is the money owed by the public. So remember, government invests in different businesses or enterprises, and therefore for the government it is not Kenya Kwanza. Of course, the partnership or this shareholding was entered into not by this Kenya Kwanza regime. It is something that has existed over several years. So it means that the 35% is owned by the public. In other words, it is a public money, the public money from the public coffers. So by the for government to sell this, then it means that part of what the public owns is being privatized. In short, we have, as I've said, that the government is expecting to raise about 149 billion. We know that they are doing this to try and raise the money that is needed for development and also to pay for loan. Because remember, Kenya, we have about 11 trillion Kenya shillings as a loan that we owe people or entities out there as a country. And therefore, they are trying to raise this to help them in matters development and also partly to help raising the money that is supposed to be used to pay the loan. So doing this, then it means the public is going to lose that portion that has not already that has not been put out there publicly. Exactly how many percent out of the 35% shares that the government owns at Safaricom, we are still not sure of how many percentage or how much percentage they want to actually sell. So there are only two ways that they can sell this, and one is shortened as IPO. This is where they then have the public, or rather they put it out there so that whoever invests or takes these shares, that money goes directly to the public coffers, or rather the treasury, and not the company, which is Safaricom. And then the other one is open now for investors. So that means a bidder with the highest, so the highest bidder would then take it at the end of the day. But now my main interest here is not actually how the government is going to do this or why they are doing it. But then my main interest is after doing it, what happens next? Because remember, we've had a government in place that has been actually borrowing, and after borrowing, whatever this money does, there's no much transparency, because after borrowing, it is not always in the public domain, so Kenyans normally don't understand exactly the terms and conditions under which the borrowing was done, or under which the payment is supposed to be done. So again, we find that most of this money, it disappears in between. Yeah. So today we have a government that if you look around, you realize that we still have schools that don't have classrooms. Children are actually studying under trees. We also have schools like the one in Nyanza that got 87 Kenya shillings in the capitation. But we have these government officials out there dishing out money handouts in millions of Kenya shillings in the name of empowerment. So still, it's one thing, and Kenyans would seriously be surprised, because again, this percentage might be sold by making the public understand that the intention is right, but then after being sold, again, this money might again disappear somewhere in between without doing anything tangible. I've walked a bit across the country, and there's a time I was in Turkana just recently, I think about a year ago. And there's this place in Turkana where there's no network. Even Safaricom itself doesn't reach there. There are no radio waves. And as a matter of fact, I'm saying the truth, these people still thought that it is Moi who was still the president. So if we were talking to them and telling them, you know, Kibaki was here and left, we had Uhuru who is here. Actually, it was just about a few months to the election. We were telling them that Uhuru is also here, is completing his 10-year term, and we are going to an election to elect somebody else, and they were wondering. So just moving from this area a little bit towards Lodwar, the first network to come through was Safaricom. So I'm telling you that story to tell you how much Safaricom has tried to invest in its reach, even into the interior areas, the very rural areas of the country. And therefore, Safaricom is a company that is interested in growth, and is a company that, even according to Treasury CS, is a company that is growing, and a company that is stable enough because of its cash flow and the money flow. And therefore, Safaricom is a target of many people. So if the government is willing to sell its shares, then that speaks volumes. So our main interest here should be what happens next after these shares have been sold. So the main question is, fine, the government has decided to sell this, maybe to reduce the spree of borrowing. So how sure are we that once they sell these shares, they are no longer going to borrow, or even if they borrow, then they'll borrow amount or something that makes sense, that will not in the end put the Kenyan taxpayer into the hard corner of paying more taxes. Because today, as you look at our borrowing spree and how the borrowing has been happening, then that tells you that even somebody who has not yet been born is already taxed or tasked with a role of paying tax. So that is the main question. So I'll end this by simply putting out the question to my fellow citizens out there. What is your thought about selling portion of the 35% of the Safaricom, of the government shares in the Safaricom company? And why is it that they are not still talking about the exact percentage that they are going to sell? Is it that they want to talk to us and tell us it is just a portion, but in real sense they're selling 35%, the whole of it? Or are we yet going to see again, or are we yet to see another serious case like what we've seen in the sugarcane industry or the sugar industry, where we've seen the sugar companies being privatized, and some even the terms and conditions are very much unclear, even now having the leaders of those specific areas where these companies are situated to come out and even rally the public to demonstrate against such public-private partnerships. And therefore, let's see, what are your thoughts? Give us your comments. What do you, if you had 5 minutes with the president today, or you had 5 minutes with the Treasury CS, or rather you had 5 minutes with the government, so that you share with them something, what would you say? Please, let's have that in the comment section. What are your thoughts? What do you see? And what do you actually think? What is the best approach that the government can take to ensure that the debt is paid and the public entities or enterprises are also safe for the future generations? Because if we lose these entities today, then we are not sure of the country we are living for the future generations.